This is more of a journey. You're describing
Absolutely.
leadership as an ongoing process and not something that I learned to do and now I do it.
Yes, and I really think that being an effective leader is actually a transformational journey that you have to go through. Leadership starts in the inside with who are you, what do you stand for, what are your beliefs, and if you don't know who yourself, who you are, it's pretty hard for you to lead someone else. So the first stop is what I call, self-leadership. Then the next stop is one-on-one leadership. Now I'm ready to work with another individual and all because I know myself well enough. And once you're able to do that well, then you're ready to be a team leader. See, and teams are more complicated than working one-on-one. If it's just you and I in a relationship, we only have 2 possible relationships. But if a third person joins us, we jump to 12 possible relationships because it's your relationship to me and mine to you and yours to him and all that kind of thing. But it's your relationship to me when that person's there. When we get 4 people, now we got 54 possible relationships. So being a team leader is more complicated. You just can't jump into being a team leader, I don't think, if you haven't had a chance to experience working with a single individual. And then the final stop of the journey, where you hope you really can, is to be an organizational leader. Because organizations are more complicated than a team because now you're talking about managing several teams, divisions, departments, and all that kind of thing. And the key thing in self is you want to gain perspective. One-on-one, you want to learn how to build trust. With teams, you want to learn how to build a community. And with organizations, you want to know how to create both results and human satisfaction. And that's a real journey, I think.
The notion of engagement plus empowerment will bring us closer to execution.
Yes, first you got to excite your people with your vision and direction. You got to develop them. You got to really be there for growing their skills and all that kind of thing. And, that's what empowerment's all about. And then, boom, then you can start to get the results that you want. I mean, they all go together. And I think if people understood where you're going and what you're trying to do, both with the organization and with them, they can really get there. I got a place here. Because I can contribute. I can make a difference here.
So, last question. If you had just a minute or two to step in and say, hey, folks, maybe you need to think about this, or maybe this is an important thing for you to have on your plate, what would you sort of leave us with in terms of important ideas that we should think about?
Well, I tell you, Todd, I think what I would say to people is they need to understand the difference between success and significance. And I think a lot of people make a mistake to think that their whole career depends on how much money they make, how much recognition they get for their efforts and their power and status. And let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with making good money. There's nothing wrong with getting recognized. There's nothing wrong with power and status. But if you think that's who you are, you constantly have to get more of all of those. And now it becomes about you, and you miss significance. See, the opposite of accumulation of wealth is generosity. And what's generosity? It's not just generosity with your treasure or your money. It's generosity with your time and your talent. And I like to add touch as a fourth one. So what do you do to really help with other people? What's the opposite of recognition? It's service. Being there for people, being there for your organization, not thinking that it's all about you. And what's the opposite of power and status? I think it's loving relationships. A friend of mine tells a wonderful story about when he was young, his grandmother was an incredible Monopoly player. He said she was a vicious Monopoly player. I mean, when she played Monopoly, she acted like she was the illegitimate child of an affair between Donald Trump and Martha Stewart, And at the end of every game, she had everything. She had Broadway, she had part play. He had nothing. And she'd get this great grin on her face. And she'd say, John, someday you're going to learn how to play the game. And one summer, a kid, when John was about 12 or 13, moved next door. He was an incredible Monopoly player. He practiced with him every day because he knew his grandmother was coming in September. And when Grandma came, he ran in and gave her a hug and a kiss. And he said, Grandma, how about a Monopoly game? And her eyes lit up. And she said, let's go, John. But he was ready for her this time, and he came out of the chute. And he wiped his grandmother out. He got everything. She had nothing. He said it was the greatest day of his life. And his grandmother smiled, and she said, John, now that you know how to play the game, let me teach you a lesson in life. it all goes back in the box. Leadership is love. It's about loving your mission. It's about loving your customers. It's about loving your people and loving yourself enough to get out of the way so other people can be magnificent.
Thank you, Ken. You've given us a lot to think about.
Todd, I enjoyed it. Thanks so much.